Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Evan Mion. Today I'm joined by Connor
Hey guys.
and Mike.
Hello.
And today I just sort of wanted to kick things off with a discussion on VR. Now, we've done VR episodes in the past. We've actually quite recently been talking about VR, especially in the games we've been playing, because I know, Mike, you've got that Oculus Quest. But I kind of just wanted to visit VR because I think we're in an interesting space now where, like, the initial, I guess, generation of VR, like the Gen 1 of VR, is kind of over and done with, and we're kind of getting into the next sort of more upgraded, sort of more streamlined phase of VR. And we're seeing some interesting, technological advancements there, with like inside out tracking, foveated rendering, wireless VR. And I just kind of wanted to check in, I guess, where we all are with VR and just sort of discuss it a bit. And I think the thing that precipitated this for me was Sony's sort of mini announcement of the PSVR 2. It doesn't have a hard date or anything yet, but they did confirm that it exists and that it's imminent, like it's going to happen. And they confirmed some really interesting specs too. So it's going to have like a resolution of 4000 by 2040, which is 2000 by 2040 per eye, which is actually a slightly higher resolution than the Oculus Quest 2. It'll also utilize foveated rendering, which I believe you can correct me on this, Connor, if I'm wrong, but basically it's only rendering what you're looking at.
Yeah, foveated rendering uses eye tracking to tell where your eyes are actually pointed.
Yeah.
And it only renders in high resolution what you're looking at. It still renders everything, but it's basically adaptive resolution, but only it renders what you're looking at super high fidelity and your peripheral vision in lower fidelity.
Yeah, and so I've never really experienced foveated rendering in VR
That
myself.
is because this is the first time it's ever been done.
Right, but what I was going to get to is that it seems like a lot of people are looking at this as a big advancement in VR tech, so I'm excited to see how it actually improves
foveated
immersion.
rendering until recently, and probably still recently, would have been the one technology for me that draws the line between Gen 1 and Gen 2 VR, because I don't think we can go much farther without it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's really the biggest highlight here in this spec list. But we've also got inside out tracking, which is very convenient for, like we don't have to rely on like the camera really anymore, as well as the haptics, right? So the DualSense haptics are getting integrated into the PSVR 2 controllers, as well as the headset. So I think that in particular will give Sony's VR solution, make it a little more unique from the other high-end VR stuff. So yeah, I think this thing is pretty exciting, and I'm kind of really looking forward to jumping into it, especially because my relationship with VR currently, like I'm fascinated by it, but I don't really game in VR too much anymore. So I definitely think this will be the shot in the arm for me at least to get really back into VR gaming.
Yeah,
But,
it's kind of hopefully.
yeah.
My biggest hope is that the PSVR, the PSVR 2, much like the first one, gets hacked quickly, because it does sound like the golden feature list that you tie to a box that is not, that's going to be underpowered in 2 years,
Right.
And that's a shame, because it does, it with just the feature set you've listed, it kind of blows everything else out of the water as far as being a good headset.
But, like we said, Facebook, is iterating so quickly. I'm sure by the time this thing comes out, maybe we'll have a Quest 3 that is comparable or better to this thing.
Yeah.
I don't think they're releasing a Quest 3 this year. I think they've made it pretty clear that the Quest 2 is going to be.
Yeah, they're not
2021
releasing
product.
PSVR this year either. VR, people are speculating PSVR 2 is a 2022 thing or beyond. So I'm sure by then Facebook will come up with another thing.
Also,
Hey.
Facebook doesn't have a strong tendency to do like the Quest doesn't really do anything interesting technology-wise. Like, inside-out tracking was a solved problem before the Quest happened.
Wireless VR?
Wireless
all-in-one.
VR, yeah, but I mean, they didn't do that originally. Somebody else did that before them, and just put it on the Quest. Remote Desktop did.
I think
Facebook's a lot more interested in making existing technology accessible than it is innovating.
I mean, that's all.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
so.
You can innovate
think
all you want with like VR, but that innovation, say like an index, it's top of the line, but it's $1,000 for a full index setup.
And it's also not really top of the line.
I was gonna say
yeah.
that. Like, you guys are more familiar with PC VR than I am. Is the Index still like the end all be all
Well,
headset?
the Index is probably the best headset on the market, but for $1,000, you should be getting all the killer features. And
Yeah.
You're not. You're getting about half of them.
I think you get full finger tracking, which is
yeah, you get
cool,
full finger tracking and good resolution, but it's not the best resolution on the market, and it's pretty soon not going to be the only headset with finger tracking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the thing is, you're paying a premium. The only thing that the Quest really, or not the Quest, that the Index really has is that its tracking is unmatched. It has the best tracking in the industry.
hands down best tracking in the industry. But
the problem is all the other solutions are pretty good, like
Yeah.
well beyond good enough.
Especially when, the Oculus Quest 2 is what, $300? That's
Yeah.
yeah, $300.
Yeah, and the
value
upcoming
there.
Deca Gear 1 is going to be $450, I think, and it's gonna
Who's-
literally
who's
have
making that?
all. That is Deca Gear. That is an
okay,
up and
like
coming
another company. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and the Deca Gear 1 is like probably the most upsetting headset in VR because I don't trust this company to be around for very long, but they're making a ton of like excellent innovations that are being ignored by the bigger companies. Like they recently released the Deca Move, which is a little clip you put on your waist, and it tracks which way your hips are facing. So like for instance, if you're running in a game right now, when you're moving, it's either using your hand or your head to decide where you're moving. And that's extremely disorienting and kind of a terrible idea. But that's all they can do because that's all they're tracking. So
Mhm.
Deca Gear's idea was to put a tracker on your hip, and now whichever way your hips are facing, that's the direction you'll move. And
Really,
that
a
just
tracker on your hip. That's kind
Yeah.
of
Full body
it's a
tracking.
tiny little, and it's not even like tracked the way the rest of the stuff is tracked because it doesn't care where your hips are. It only cares which direction they're facing. So it's just like a little accelerometer that you put
So
on your
it's
hip.
it's like close to full body tracking, but it's not the full setup.
So where are we at with full body tracking? As far as I know,
Um,
that's not really a thing yet, right?
it-
but that's
it is
It's
definitely
actually.
cost like
happening.
10 grand.
You can buy
Right.
a kit that'll track your legs. I know VR Chat supports 5-point, which is head, hands, and feet, I believe. I think one on the hips.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
mean, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Deca Gear is weirdly focused on VR chat. They and generally multiplayer VR play in general. They're actually including cameras that track your eyes, but don't do foveated rendering, which is extremely upsetting to me, and I wonder if it's going to be added later. But they track your eyes and your mouth, so that they can put your expressions in the game.
That's really cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that has
or,
huge
and
implications.
I at first I thought that was stupid, but then I thought like if I'm playing tabletops, like COVID made me suddenly think that like, oh, that's a really good idea because I'm suddenly playing Dungeons and Dragons with people and I can't see their faces, and like I started thinking about how cool it would be to play in Tabletop Simulator and like look like our characters but have our facial expressions.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, like it's really crazy thinking about the future of VR because we truly are like just inching closer and closer to like, the stuff in like Ready Player One. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but like,
I have not, but
yeah, just like complete immersion, like Omni treadmill, full body suit, like you're basically just inside of the game. And I do think we'll get there eventually, but it's interesting to see like the beginnings of that, the full body tracking. And I know Omni treadmills have been around for a while. Of course, they're way too expensive to be mainstream right now, but like maybe some sort of better solution to that will come along soon as well.
I mean, I still like. I think of VR. So last episode, if you guys listened to it, we were talking about consoles, and I'm not gonna get into that too much. But
That's
the
our
console
definitive
generations, you'll notice
tier
we
list, by the
started
way.
on the third gen. We started on third gen
Yeah.
consoles, and I think VR is still in those first two gens right now.
I
Like,
agree. Yeah. Like
So like
we still haven't seen the jump from like 2D to 3D graphics. the
Well, not
equivalent of
even that, because I don't know that jump is nearly as important as the jump from like, arcade games
Pong
to
to-
Super
yeah.
Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Like, and we haven't seen that jump really. We've seen, well, arguably Half-Life Alyx is that jump.
Yeah, Half-Life
Like-
Alyx is that jump.
And you could argue that the Quest is trying to be the NES, but like we're still, the NES got passed up by the Genesis and the SNES. Like things were still just getting started when that NES came out and when like the first real games came out, and that's still where we're at in VR.
Yeah,
We haven't even
that's a really
started yet.
Interesting point. Like you brought up, and that kind of leads into my next point. You brought up Half-Life Alyx, and I know that's currently kind of like the golden standard for the AAA VR game. But like, I think the majority of experiences on VR, not all of them, but the majority are like these shorter, like sort of, I don't want to say demo-like experiences, but like bite-sized experiences that really aren't that really don't have like a one-to-one analog to the current games industry, I think.
Yeah.
But like I do think it's interesting. We've seen Half-Life Alyx, which I haven't played, but everything I hear tells me it is
The
the
killer
real
app.
deal in terms of like a full-fledged VR experience. And I know we're getting stuff on PSVR as well. I can't speak to other platforms, but I don't think we've fully jumped into that point yet where VR devs are fully confident like making the caliber of games we see, non-VR in VR. Does that make
Definitely
sense?
not. No, we're still stuck in Portland, which is a waste of time in my opinion. I don't think I've ever played a VR port that I thought was worth the time it took to develop.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, like VR from the ground up is where the innovation is going to happen, right? Like you will have entertaining experiences, right? Like they had like a Resident Evil 7 port to VR and,
Well,
horror games just
that wasn't a
naturally.
port. That was a mode. That was like, I think
Right,
those are
yeah.
worth their salt because they're not that hard to make. Like Subnautica has a VR mode where it's like the exact same game, but it has head tracking. Like,
Yeah.
and that's cool and all. Like that's a novelty, and I don't think it takes a ton of time to develop. The ones that I think are an absolute waste of everyone's time are like Fallout 4 VR, Skyrim VR, Borderlands VR. Those games aren't fun. Like,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah,
a bad.
those
They leave a
games
bad
kind
taste in your
of
mouth.
those games like in particular kind of seem similar to me as like the 3D craze, like when people were making 3D games,
Exactly. Yeah,
they're
and
just
it's
VR
just
to be VR.
yeah,
Right?
except they're really expensive to make. Like a full VR conversion. Like
That's basically just making another game,
yeah, and like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think modders could have turned Skyrim into VR and done as good a job as Bethesda did. And same with Fallout 4. And like I don't know, but Bethesda wanted to charge me $60 for it. Like
Well,
Yeah,
that's
I feel
Bethesda.
like
If the platform exists, Skyrim's coming to it.
like a VR game should be built from the ground up for VR
yeah, absolutely.
because porting an already existing games such as Borderlands or Skyrim to VR is going to introduce these weird eccentricities.
I think that's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
I-
Borderlands 2 VR, which I have not played and I don't think I'm going to play because it doesn't have co-op. Uh, scopes are weird. It's hard to do scopes in VR.
Yeah, I will offer like a counterpoint. I think the more like exploration-based games like No Man's Sky and Subnautica do work.
Well, No Man's Sky
But-
is not. Yeah, I mean those are VR modes in a non-VR game. Like they didn't charge me another $60 to play, Subnautica in VR. And Subnautica, to be clear, the VR mode in Subnautica is terrible, just the worst.
Really? Okay.
But it doesn't hurt anybody that it's there. Like, and the same for No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky, like, it's actually really enjoyable, I think, to play No Man's Sky in VR. That's where most of my hours in it are.
hmm
But like, and I'll be honest, they did. Yeah, No Man's Sky is actually a really good argument against what I'm saying because they did a really good job turning that into a VR game. So the only problem there is like the menus, but
genre
they
of
did
game.
a really good job of doing VR menus too.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, like it's just exploration-based games come to mind when it comes to like easy, not easy, but like VR ports slash versions that make sense. But like in terms of VR games, right? Like especially in terms of like multiplayer games, like it's interesting. We are starting to get like multiplayer VR games. Can't really speak to how well they work, but I know I've heard really good things about like I think Firewall Zero Hour.
I just know I've heard a lot of great things about Pavlov VR.
Oh, I have
What's
too.
that?
It's just a shooter. It's like I think it's supposed to be like Counter-Strike-y.
It's just like I think based on what I've seen, it falls the line between like a Battlefield esque.
Okay, but yeah, it's just a shooter. Nothing crazy, but it's a good VR
Yeah.
shooter.
But what's really interesting is like I think we're thinking in terms of multiplayer that we have now and getting that into VR. What's really going to be interesting is then when we do like multiplayer implementations that can only happen in VR. I'm excited for that.
I mean,
think,
stuff like Rec Room exists now, and I think Rec Room is one of the better VR games that exists. It's a free to play game, and
isn't
it's
that
like
sort of like Wii Sports but VR?
it's a lot like Wii Sports with VR, except it has a lot of player made content and stuff. It has like paintball, it has laser tag, it has like these story mode style things that you can do where you're fighting a bunch of enemies with like swords and shields and bows with like two of your
Mhm.
friends. But it also has like a bowling alley and like a pool table and like the it's not a suitable replacement for pool, but I did during the quarantine, like when I couldn't go out to a bar and hang with my friends and play pool. I did play pool with some friends in Rec Room, and it was like close enough.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like something like pool. I mean, like how do they handle like the resistance? You know, like when you strike.
They don't.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
It's
similar
just
to a
how
video
fast you're
game,
moving
right?
your
It would
hand
just,
is how hard you hit the ball. Yeah, like I mean, it obviously has concessions made, but like
but you know, like when that PSVR 2 comes out with the haptics, there will be some sort of feedback there,
I
which
mean,
could
you'll
be
have a
really cool.
rumble, but it's still not going to be like
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I don't know, man. The haptics in the DualSense, if it's
Also
the same
notable,
haptics,
the
it's
Deca
gonna
Gear is
be
doing the
pretty-
exact same haptics as the PSVR is.
as the dual or as the PS5.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that'll be on PC too. The only thing it's missing is the foveated rendering, and I'm not
Yeah.
holding my breath on that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's doing it in the headset. It's only doing it in the controllers.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of interesting to me. Like I get controller haptics, but
I
like
don't know.
why
Doing
would
it
I
in the
want to feel
headset's a
stuff on
cool
my
idea.
head?
Because like
You
if I
know?
was playing Subnautica, like a good VR version of Subnautica, I think it'd be really cool. Like when
Maybe
I
feel the
submerge
bubbles
myself
like
in water,
in your
just
head or something. Like
to like when you dive into the water to feel like feel bubbles against your helmet
yeah,
or something.
that could be
Like
cool. You know, I feel like it'd just be weird to feel things touching my face when I'm playing a video game, but I don't know. I'm probably wrong. I'll probably like it when
no,
it
I think I would
happens.
like it. I think it's a good idea in general. I'm down for it. Very
Yeah.
down for it.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm excited about VR. I'm kind of in this space right now where I'm not playing VR games, but I'm like following VR news. But I do think, you know, like especially with, you know, technologies like foveated rendering, haptics and stuff, like it's just going to take immersion to the next level.
Yeah.
Uh, the only I think the big downside, it's not that big of a downside, but like the downside to the PSVR 2 specs is that it is not wireless. There's like a single USB-C cable, which is, you know, a big improvement over current
Is it
PSVR.
replaceable?
Replaceable. What do you mean?
Like can you detach it on both sides?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's so stupid. That's my headset is going right now, and it
Yeah.
has a cord that cannot be replaced. And I've stepped on that cord because obviously I've stepped on that cord. I can't see. And yeah, now my headset's, its
That's-
days are numbered. And that's stupid and that's super common.
I think that's the best sticking point for the Quest 2 right now is that you can just buy a new cord.
Yeah,
They're
and
not
it's not an
expensive.
Well,
expensive
yeah, it's,
cord.
it's a USB-C cord, so it's going to be a very common.
It has to be a
Cord.
specific spec because USB-C is weird with their specifications.
Yeah, but it's attainable. Like you can buy
Yeah.
an Anchor
Yeah.
USB-C cord and you're in luck.
I think my Anchor cost me like $30.
Yeah, and that's really
So-
not bad for what it
Dude,
gets you.
Quick tangent. I'm so glad that USB-C adoption actually happened, and
Oh my god, I know.
for the most part, people stopped. You know, like except for like Apple, like stopped making their proprietary ports. Like it's
Even
nice
Apple
that-
uses a lot of
So
USB-C.
nice.
Really, I know
Yeah.
like my MacBook has a USB-C port, but I wasn't sure about the phones.
Well, no, the phones don't. But correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Lightning just USB-C but inside out?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it is. Which makes
But
me
yeah,
even
like-
angrier.
It's so like convenient because like I can charge my Switch, my phone, my laptop, and my controller with like the same charger, and it's
Yeah.
just so convenient.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But yeah, like, do you guys have any other thoughts on VR? I don't know.
I have one
like-
big one. Is that one of the biggest challenges I think that are going to come up in game design in the near future is like the struggle between immersion and convenience. And this
Okay.
is probably the biggest
I
place
mean-
Half-Life Alyx missed for me, and I have an anecdote for it. I was fighting in like what is essentially the game's equivalent of a boss fight. They're like these lightning head crab things, and I think there were 3 of them in a room. and you have to kill all three, and then they drop something that you have to like put in a generator to power it. And like I'm in the middle of a very intense fight and all, and I kill them, and I got one of them, and I didn't have time to put it in the thing, so I tossed it to the side to keep fighting, and then I finished that fight, and I never found the one that I tossed to the side, and I have
It
not
didn't
played
like
the game since then.
respawn or whatever.
I mean, no, it's just, I mean, I just lost it. Like, it was a big room, and it had
Yeah.
a bunch of clutter, and I threw this item to the side, and now I can't find it, and I don't want to play the game.
They should have been like pinging it if you didn't find it after a while or something.
I know, but they didn't.
But
Like, I-
but the whole dichotomy between, you know, what did you say, convenience and immersion?
Yeah.
I think, you know, that's obviously like VR will wrestle with that too, but that's like a very common conflict in game design today. Like the big game that comes to mind is Red Dead Redemption 2, right? That's one of the most immersive
my
games
God,
you'll
yeah.
ever play, but it is not convenient to play. It's very
Yeah.
very
Yeah, that's a
frustrating to play.
Good point.
So yeah, it will be interesting. Like VR will have to solve a bunch of problems again, and it'll be interesting to see if any lessons learned during like normal game development will translate. But like I'm sure VR will have its own unique challenges as well for in terms of game design at least.
Yeah, I really think technologically we're in a good place now, though. Like,
Absolutely,
especially once
yeah.
foveated rendering comes, like, all the technology is perfectly good for putting you in a simulated space and like having a good time. And now
Yeah, I
we're just
think-
kind of waiting for affordability, I guess.
Yeah, I think in terms of like technological advancement, like once foveated rendering is like normalized, like I think that will you know do big things for immersion in VR, and then like we're kind of like I feel like at that point we've sort of mastered the initial concept of VR, and then we'll be like sort of waiting for the next big leap, which is exciting because I do think that next big leap is coming. Like you said, we're still very early in our exploration of VR, and it's things are gonna advance
Yeah.
very quickly. So.
The only other major technological breakthrough that kind of it bothers some people. It really doesn't bother me at all. Like I immediately stop thinking about it, but field of view bothers a lot of people. Like where you have just black in your peripheral vision because you are wearing goggles, you know? That really
Yeah.
bugs a lot of people. I don't get it. I think they're being crybabies because like it's
I
fine.
don't know, man. Like I
It
felt
doesn't bother me at all.
entirely immersed whenever I play VR. I
Yeah, me too.
honestly don't even
Like,
notice. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a friend who like he's been harping on that since like 2016. He's been saying that he won't buy a headset until he doesn't have huge black bars on the side of his vision. I'm like, man, like
I mean, like as with anything with a screen, companies will do anything they can to reduce the bezel size. So I feel like the same will happen with
yeah,
with
it's
VR
it's
headsets.
technologically more difficult with VR because it kind of has to wrap around your view.
yeah.
But yeah, it's more complicated to make a screen that has to wrap that dramatically and stuff and also be kind of durable. And I don't know. I don't know that we're ever gonna. Well, I'm sure we will eventually, but I don't know that anytime soon he is going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
But I'm plenty satisfied with the field of view of pretty much every headset I've tried.
Yeah, I can't say that's a complaint for me either. I'm particularly fascinated by Facebook's evolving role in this. You know, like obviously like you've stated your disdain with Facebook, Connor. I don't particularly like Facebook either, but like I do think they're definitely kind of a boon for VR right now. And they do seem very invested in, you know, making VR mainstream and advancing VR. So I am keeping an eye on their role in all of this because I think they'll
Yeah.
be a strong
Yeah, it's a-
VR player in the future.
Classic case of the bad guy doing a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's yeah, I don't even know what to say about Facebook and VR.
Yeah. It's accessible though, so it's a great time to get into VR.
Yeah, and I
It
mean,
is.
like, especially if, you know, like, Facebook's got what, something like a billion users, something crazy like that, more than that probably.
I mean, yeah, I feel
So-
like the Quest is in such a good position right now at $300. Like it's at $300, like that's affordable enough that like if you're someone who flies regularly, $300 probably isn't too expensive for something to make your flights a little more enjoyable. You know, like
Yeah.
I can see myself wearing a Quest watching movies on a flight or something. Like
Yeah, I'm just like I'm awaiting eagerly the point where I think, and I do think this will come, where like everyone, you know, for travel is like packs their phone, their briefcase, and like their VR headset. Like I do think we'll get to the point in the future where like maybe your VR set will be something so common that you bring it with you, like in most places.
I also think that the Quest is making like wonderful strides in the area of business use. Because I've
Right.
said that this is ever since I got my first
Programming in
headset.
VR.
Well, yeah. I mean, eventually, yes. But as soon as I can realistically simulate like a 1080p screen in VR and it still looks 1080p to me, and I'm looking at it, I can read the text legibly and stuff, then suddenly even $1,000 VR headset is an extremely good deal now because I can have as many screens open as I need for programming for whatever I'm doing. I can fill my
Yeah.
workspace with screens, you know?
It's interesting if that use case, I wonder if that use case will get filled by VR or AR first.
I think it'll get filled by VR first because the field of view problem that VR has is way worse in augmented reality. I actually think that augmented reality is not really usable yet.
I do, like just comparing the two technologies, I think is kind of interesting because they do similar yet different things. I do think VR has sort of pulled ahead of AR in terms of innovation. I think AR's been kind of quiet for a while.
Yeah, well, the thing
Broadly
is, like,
speaking, right?
it depends on where you're going to draw the line. Because, like, if we're going to talk mixed reality, like, I think the Quest has pass-through cameras, and, like, you can see your environment, I think, and also, like, pull up VR stuff in your environment. If we're going to call that augmented reality,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's augmented.
then yeah, I think it's going to be AR, because that just makes more sense, because I can see my keyboard, I can see my mouse,
Yeah.
and I can be productive.
At that point, you have like a Tony Stark-esque like heads-up display in real life,
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind
The
of
only
end game
wacky
there.
problem there is eventually they're gonna have to start cooling these things better because these headsets do get hot on your face, and
Yeah.
that's another thing I can't really imagine is doing a full 8-hour workday with a
Oh no,
headset
I would go
like,
insane, dude.
at 100 degrees against my face. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
is
think
that a problem on the
insane.
Quest 2, Mike?
The Quest 2 has like the opposite problem where if I don't let it warm up to my face, at least the lenses it'll fog up if I start doing
Really?
anything strenuous. Yeah.
See,
The only
my,
part of the Quest that gets hot is the outside, like
Huh.
the outside face. I have not had problems with it getting unbearable on my face.
I mean, I've never reached unbearable, but my old Lenovo Explorer definitely gets hot when I'm using it.
Yeah, I mean, like that's another major thing VR needs to tackle because, like, for me at least, like I get uncomfortable very quickly in VR. Like, if I get like hot and dizzy, I'm just like not having a good time.
Well, I
And I
think
think,
that's a huge thing that the next generation is going to fix. I mean, that was like the Index's whole thing was that it was the most comfortable headset,
yeah,
and I think a lot of people are taking notes from that and either including comfort features or selling them as accessories. And I think
how
I
long
don't
till we
have a
get like
problem
built-in
with
fans?
selling them. Like the Pro head strap for the Quest 2. I don't have a problem with that. Like,
You ever think we'll actually get like mini fans
I don't think I hope
inside the
not.
headset?
That's too much. No, I don't think we'll get mini fans because that's too loud, and they don't want to put noise on it because that breaks immersion.
Yeah, it'll probably be a lot of passive cooling, but
Yeah.
a major part with a VR headset is how heavy it is. So they need to figure out lightweight cooling solutions.
Yeah, which is tough.
Yeah, the weight, I don't know. It's interesting because like PSVR, I've tried a few headsets. PSVR is the lightest one. Like I barely feel it on my face. It kind of just feels like glasses to me.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty light. Yeah.
but I think it, like, and it's interesting. Like I
A lot of that's
don't
from the
think-
Halo design of it too.
yeah, the Halo design was a really smart choice, but I don't know necessarily like I don't think there's a correlation between like higher spec VR and being more heavy, right? Like I don't
Nah,
think
I don't think so.
necessarily that's going to be a thing.
I think the Pro headset on the Quest 2 is also a Halo, I think.
Wait,
that's-
Pro? There's a Pro version of the Quest 2?
There's a Pro head strap that you
Yeah,
can
Pro
buy.
head strap. Okay.
Yeah, and it's also terrible. Don't buy it. It I guess like it has like a 25% chance to crack within a week or something.
I heard
There's,
it
like,
was
That's really
useful.
bad.
what?
I heard it was useful.
Oh, it's super useful if you get one that doesn't break. There were a bunch of bad ones in the batch when it first came out. I don't know if it's been fixed or not. I haven't looked at this in like 3 months.
Well, there's RMAs, honestly.
RMAs.
Yeah, you could RMA. My experience with dealing with Oculus's warranties, their RMA sequence was pretty easy
Okay.
because getting
I just know
new
like when it
controller
first
was
came out,
painless.
the VR subreddit was just polluted with all these people whining about their cracked head straps.
Hmm.
Yeah. VR is weird.
It is. I think yeah, I do think that's another thing Facebook is doing right though. Everything on a Quest 2 is replaceable. Except like the lenses. I think if you scratch a lens, you're still screwed.
Yeah, I don't really
Did-
see how the lenses. I feel
Something
like that's
I
a
think
tough
they
thing
need
to
to be
replace.
like something people need to be more vocal about with headsets because I actually owned mine for a few years before I knew this. But you can't leave them in the sun. The where the lenses are so powerful.
Oh,
You'll
really?
yeah,
That's funny.
if the sun hits your lenses, it'll burn the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in general, they recommend like keeping screens away from direct sunlight, but I think, maybe it's more amplified in VR.
Yeah, because I mean they're magnifying lenses. Like
Yeah.
and I didn't know that. I just fortunately didn't do that. I mean, how often? If you're not a Quest owner, you probably don't take your headset outside that often. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cases like VR headsets don't work well in the sun. They
no,
don't track well. They don't do
the
anything
inside out
well.
tracking doesn't work very well with natural light. It just bounces too well.
Yeah.
You want to use, and that's another thing. I would vastly prefer playing VR in a dark room. That's like the only downside of inside out tracking for me.
Yeah, I mean, like in general, I do my gaming in a dark room, so
That's
I don't
so bad for you.
think. Is it really?
Oh my god, yeah.
It
you
looks a
don't
lot
want-
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, it's so
It's
bad for your
super
eyes.
bad
but
for your eyes.
You need high contrast. I mean, if you have like lights behind your TV or your monitor or something against the wall, you're fine. But looking at a rectangle that's lit up in a dark room is extremely bad for your eyes.
Well, rip my eyes then, I guess. I've been doing that my whole life.
So bad for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody does it occasionally. Everybody watches movies in the dark and stuff, but like you don't watch a movie for 8 hours, and like it's not uncommon for gamers to pull an all-nighter. So
Yeah, and it's just tough because like my TV's an OLED, and that OLEDs really shine in the dark, right? Like OLEDs.
well, it doesn't have to
you're-
be bright lights behind it. Like it can be like theater lighting, like a
Yeah,
dim lamp
I see
against
what you
the
mean.
wall. Yeah, like it doesn't have to be in front. Like you could literally have lights on the back of your TV shining against the wall. It's about the contrast. Like
Right.
yeah, so
Might have to look into that.
invest in some sick RGB. That's what I'm gonna do.
Dude, okay,
Yeah.
this is another aside. I'm really not a big fan of the gamer RGB. I just think it's garish.
I wasn't until recently, but I was building a new PC and I was like, well, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. So I did it.
I think my PC's
Yeah, RGB.
got like
I've
white
really
lights.
liked.
But yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I've really kind of fallen into RGB. I'm still like a minimalist when it comes to designing things.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, in terms of tech, I always like the I generally prefer the minimalist style, I think.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have when I set up my game room, I have like all the RGB in my PC. I have RGB fans on the front. That was built into the case. My RAM was RGB, which is kind of a meme, but it was like only a total of $20 more. So I was like, why not? And my motherboard has a couple strips of RGB on it, and that's it right now.
I think the most I can tolerate is like one color. Like if everything is one color and like
see, I'm a
provides a
two-color.
certain aesthetic.
I like
Yeah.
a 2-color gradient. That's what I'm into. I think rainbow RGB is disgusting.
Oh, that's
I think
vomit. I hate
it
that.
looks so bad, and I hate that that's like the default that they show RGB in on websites and stuff. Like I get that communicates it the best, but everything is so ugly like that. But like I have just like a cool little like red to white wave going on inside my PC all the time that moves real slow, and I really like it.
Yeah, like even in terms of like my consoles, right? Like the PS5 is pretty outlandish looking, right? I actually I purchased like these plates from Dbrand, right? Because the white plates can come off really easy on your PS5.
God, PS5 is so ugly.
So I'm gonna replace the white plates with black plates and put like a matte strap over the middle because it's glossy now. So I imagine it'll look kind of sleek with
That
that
will
dark
look better. Yeah.
matte coloring. So I'm kind of excited to try that out. But
It's cool that they made the plate so easily replaceable.
yeah, a lot of cool custom things will
God, that's
be
another thing.
done.
I will never not laugh at a VR headset that has googly eyes on the front.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, lots of people like to put googly eyes on the front of their VR headsets.
That's weird.
I think it's really funny.
I mean, yeah. I guess like it is tough because like when I'm in that thing at least like someone could break into my house, rob it, and leave, and I would not notice.
Oh my God. When I
So
lived with my ex, we both played VR a ton, and we would like we would like set up ridiculous scenarios and take pictures of each other while we were in VR. Like
oh yeah, like the person in VR 9 out of 10 times has no idea, like no
absolutely
outside
no
awareness.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, it could be fun like messing with people, but
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I wonder
like
how VR etiquette is gonna evolve in the world.
oh, it's not. Probably not, right? Like
I mean, to some extent, I think it will, because like you can actually hurt somebody
true, yeah.
or get hurt badly.
But yeah, just to I guess sort of to put a cap on the VR discussion, like all the talking we did about the Oculus Quest 2 got me really close to pulling the trigger and buying one. But then Sony comes out and releases the specs for this thing. So I'm of the mind now that I'm probably just going to wait for this thing and hope that, that it'll integrate with PC down the line because there are things I want to play. Like I definitely want to play Half-Life Alyx.
You can do that
Um,
on your current headset. You just have to hook it up to your PC.
Can I? But like PSVR kind of sucks now. Like I don't know. It's
Yeah, I mean
just-
it's definitely the worst possible way to play Half-Life or
yeah.
second worst possible way to play Half-Life Alyx.
So I mean, like it's not like I'm
What's
chomping
the
at the
worst?
bit to do it, right? So
The worst, you can hook up an Android phone to Steam VR if you want.
Oh,
Oh no, so I
Oh.
guess third worst because there's also a mod to play Half-Life Alyx with traditional controls.
yeah, where's the fun in that?
Yeah, that
what's
would be
the-
really
what's the
stupid.
fun in
But,
getting,
like-
Then it's just an okay shooter at that point.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people like I don't really know anything about Half-Life. I know like there's millions of gamers chomping at the bit for Half-Life 3, right? And like the
Yep.
wait for 2 to 3 was like killing people. But like I really don't know anything about it, so I could really care less. So
I don't
I just want to
understand those people.
experience I just
'Cause
want to
I've
experience
played-
Alex because I hear it's a great VR game.
Yeah, I've played 1 and 2, and I don't know, maybe I need to play the episodes because I didn't finish 2, but I get that it ended on a cliffhanger, but an okay story that ended on a cliffhanger is not worth losing your mind over. But I think it was more
I
than
mean,
an okay story when it came out. It was
Yeah, I was gonna say at the time it was like pretty.
it was like top-notch video game
Yeah.
story, especially the episodes.
yeah, I
'cause
haven't played the episodes.
That
so.
was during the gnarly early era of games where strong narratives weren't exactly a
a thing.
focal
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Like you really only saw strong narratives in, I want to say, the Xbox 360 generation,
Yeah, PS3, Xbox 360 for sure.
when games weren't struggling to look the best because we were actively plateauing on fidelity.
Well, I don't know if that's fair, right? Because like PS2 to PS3, slash Xbox to Xbox 360 was the jump to the HD era,
Yeah.
so that was a big jump.
Huge fidelity jump.
Yeah, but then
And
like,
now like fidelity jumps are little leaps. They're not full-fledged PS2 to Xbox 360.
Look at Resident
or
Evil 8
whatever.
on PS4 versus PS5. Like it looks pretty good on a base PS4.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like gameplay or not gameplay, but I guess fidelity, it's part of fidelity, right? Frame rate has been the biggest thing for me, right? As a
Yeah,
console gamer this generation, like I really love the fact that it seems like we finally are settling at 60 FPS and whatever compromises we have to make to resolution to get there, whether making them. And I never really thought we'd get there, like
Oh
in the
my God, I
console
know.
space. But I guess we are here, which is kind
'Cause
of exciting.
I would have played at 480p if I could get 60 FPS. Like
I'm kind of glad that the games industry as a whole has gone away from the 30 FPS is cinematic approach.
oh my God.
Yeah, that argument, I don't think that ever held water.
It
Now I
never
wish
did.
movie directors would move away from it.
Movies are a different thing because movies aren't interactive.
I know movies are fine,
Yeah,
but there are
I agree with
directors who are
Mike,
like
yeah.
telling people how to change the settings on their TV because like interpolated frame rate is going to ruin their movie. And I'm like, man, you're just kind of making a joke out of yourself at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Like-
it's not a big deal.
Compared to like an interactive medium, smoothness and crispness are essential. But in something you're just casually enjoying or watching, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, to an extent. Nobody
Hey.
wants to watch 15 frames per second
Yeah.
ever, but 24 is
Ever, yeah.
very watchable.
No one,
which
no
is
one
what
wants to
movies are
watch
in.
your PowerPoint slideshow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you still want something that's watchable.
No,
But,
But yeah,
like,
that's a huge tangent. But yeah,
yeah, no,
I would always prefer higher frame rate in any medium. But
And now we're sticking VR at super
know-
high frame rates. Like going back to
90
VR,
plus FPS is the standard, right?
it's
no,
amazing.
not anymore.
I think it's even higher.
Lower
now.
or higher?
No, it's lower. The Quest
Lame.
is only 75, I think.
I think
it runs at 90.
No, the
I
Quest
think
2 is 90. The
I
original
think
Quest was 75.
Sony mandates a 90 FPS minimum, I think.
Yeah, 90 hertz.
And the
think
Rift
that's-
S was only 80, which was a downgrade from the original Rift, which was a bad move, I think.
Honestly, I feel like I don't know. I feel like we need to go even higher. I feel like 120 should be the standard for VR.
I think 90 is extremely playable. I think
Yeah.
90 is fine.
I think the
I've
thing
never
about
gotten much sick at 90. I'm not going to complain about higher, but I think if I'm at 90 frames per second and I'm in VR, suddenly it depends on what game I'm playing. Because if I'm playing a huge immersion, like slow moving game, 90 frames per second, but super high resolution, great graphics, I'm happy. If I'm playing a VR shooter though, or like Beat Saber, where it really, the visuals are good, but they're not the point. Yeah, I agree. Higher resolution is better, or
Yeah,
higher frame rate is better.
I think for VR is also super hard to render from a graphics standpoint because you're rendering 2 images instead of 1, and both have to be at an equal frame rate and an equal resolution.
Mhm.
There's a lot of
Right, but
technical
typically when they're
limits.
talking about the resolution of VR, they're adding the two
Yeah,
images together, and like rendering 4 1080p screens is about the same level of strenuous as one 4K screen. So,
The math
with
checks out.
some exceptions, like sometimes you'd have to load in a little more geometry and stuff.
Yeah, I just want to provide a little quick story on the whole resolution versus frame rate thing. When Spider-Man Miles Morales came out on PS5, I played it in like the resolution mode because I was so into the ray tracing, right? I'd never played a ray traced game before. And like I thought it was just so cool, right? Like and the frame rate really didn't bother me, but because keep in mind, coming off the PS4 generation, I was still really used to 30 FPS, right? Like that was what I played most of my things at. And then Insomniac went and released the ray trace 60 FPS mode, which is at 1440p, and I was like, yeah, let's try this out. And what shocked me was just how smooth everything felt. And I was like, is this just like, am I buying into the hype, the sentiment of like 60 FPS is king? I switched back to 30. It literally felt like a slideshow to me. Like,
Yeah,
it was
no,
really hard. That was
once
part
you-
of the reason I had so much trouble playing Spider-Man.
dude, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah,
and now
once
I do
it-
not ever want to play a 30 FPS game again.
I
Yeah.
got bad news for you. You're still going to, but
yeah, you're still gonna have to.
I mean,
I-
it's going to be way fewer than before, I think.
I mean, I
So-
got bad news for you when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, bud.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that game's gonna
Nintendo.
be a
Okay,
masterpiece, and it's gonna-
Nintendo's still the wild card. But even like Mario, almost every Mario game is 60 FPS. It's just
Yeah.
I imagine Zelda and Metroid aren't going to be, which kind of sucks. But
Oh, Metroid is absolutely. They're not going to release Metroid Prime 4. That is absolutely going to be 60 FPS.
do you think so?
That's not in-house Nintendo. That's retro. And
Okay.
yeah, they're not going to let their good name be sullied by 30 frames per second.
So okay,
Yeah.
let me just rephrase then. At least as far as PlayStation and Xbox is concerned, I don't think I'm going to have to play much more 30 FPS. But
Maybe. I don't know. I think that there are some games still. There are still games out there that are fine at 30 frames per second. Spider-Man is not one of them, but
Like card games or games that there's not a lot of motion going on, the frame
Or-
rate really doesn't matter.
or like
Civ, who
an
cares?
RPG. Like
I'd play Civ at 1 frame per second.
I know people who have.
It'd still be playable.
dude,
I
I know
don't
people
really
who
a lot
play.
going on.
I know people who play Civ in like the strategy mode, right? Like where there's like no movement, and
Yeah,
you just look at like static tiles.
You're
I had
looking
a friend in
numbers.
high school who was playing Civ on his ancient computer, and it would like he would take a turn, and he could like sleep through the night. Like he only got to make like a turn a day because the game had gone
God.
on a long time, and like the AI was
Oh
complicated.
yeah,
and
I
stuff.
think you've told us about this. Like he just let it go, like it's like
wrong.
the apocalypse, thousands of years in the future.
I don't remember if that was the case, but
No,
yeah,
that's
he
another
let
guy.
it go a long time, and
Okay.
like yeah, it would. it took a very long time because I remember being on Skype with him back in the day, and he would take a turn, and he would just be like, "All right, time to go do something else."
Yeah, time to go make dinner.
That's really funny.
And I've played games like that before. I've played games where because that's the funny thing about PC gamers is like most of them did not start out on a good PC.
Yeah.
Like I remember back when I was playing MMOs on my really crappy PC that my dad had cobbled together out of spare parts from his job. And like
Yeah.
I would hit a loading screen and I could get up and go eat dinner and come back and the loading screen might have finished and I would be
Dude,
able to continue to play my game
how
at 10
times
frames per
have
second.
changed, like, and now if something takes more than 10 seconds to load, we lose interest, like
Yeah.
things have changed so radically. It's wild.
And I remember I knew a couple people who would play MMOs and they would like choose their class based on how fast you had to be able to react to things. I had a friend who worked at a summer camp with me and he said he had almost 30 seconds of latency playing World of Warcraft.
What?
Yeah.
How is that even? What?
He lived out I think
Dude,
out
but
Logan
30
in West-
seconds though. Like
It was
that's
an
that's not
extremely-
playable.
Yeah.
That's just
That's why he had to play a buff class because he a very much a supporting role class because if he was in combat he was dead
Yeah,
unless
I
he could
think
one shot it.
that was a lot of experience living out in the boonies playing Dota because there'd be periods where everything would be fine and then all of a sudden I have a 10-second delay.
Yeah, it might have been 10 seconds, but
Yeah,
he
'cause,
talked about it like it
30
was 30. And
seconds,
10
dude.
seconds is still
Maybe
Unplay.
even higher because the game would only display up to 10 seconds of delay.
yeah.
The ping would not go higher than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about your experience, Connor, but like even for me growing up in Charleston, my internet was not the best. Like,
So my dad has always worked in IT.
yeah.
And we actually, it's a pretty good scam. My dad knows people who need servers hosted in different locations. I don't really understand why, but we never had to pay for internet when I was a kid. We would always get
Wow.
like, the fastest available internet
That's
because we were
amazing.
hosting servers for these people in our house.
Sounds kind of sketch, but
He still does
I
it.
mean,
He
it
says
works.
as soon as I buy a house, I can start doing it too. Like,
Okay.
I think it was for like a cable company or something too. Like that was why.
Okay.
I don't really understand it. But yeah, the only downside was the servers were really loud, so we had to like put them somewhere we didn't go that often.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great scam. I don't know that he's paid for internet in like 30 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we always had pretty good internet. I mean, by pretty good internet, I still remember having like 10 meg internet, and that was the best you could get, and it would take all day to download a game. But
Oh yeah,
Because
back
that's-
in the day.
because
that
it was still Charleston, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna get like 100 meg download.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, now my dad has like 500, and this is like the best you can get in Charleston without a business.
Oh, they don't have
connection.
gigabit
It's like
down there
500
yet?
up, 500 down, something like that.
Oh, that's good.
I
it's not
think they
bad.
have. Do they have fiber in Morgantown yet? I
They
feel like
do, actually.
Yeah,
Do they?
They have fiber in
I think they
places.
do.
I know
Yeah.
they
Oh,
have
it's not
fiber
up
all
to
the way out
yet.
in like the boonies of Preston County.
I'm
My
still
dad
stuck.
has fiber.
I still only have like 5 meg up, which is terrible. I can't stream at all. I was trying
I
to.
have 10 meg up now.
Yeah, but I
Guess I
still like
think
I
the
still have 200.
suburbs.
I still like every time I download a game, I'll see that it's like 20 gigs, and I'll be like, oh, this is gonna take all day, and then it's done in like 20 minutes because I
Yeah.
have 500 meg down or whatever, 200 meg down. I don't remember.
It's weird because we're also in the point of like PC gaming where people will spend ludicrous amounts of money on a graphics card for their 1080p screen.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, I know
want
people who have like a
brand new
1080p
3090.
360 hertz screen too, though. So like,
Yeah, but like, oh, this is a 120 hertz a 1080p monitor. I need a 3090.
Well,
Yeah, that's
maybe they're banking on like what is it, super sampling or something?
well, okay. So another thing is, even having the game run faster than your monitor, still, you'd have to watch Linus Tech Tips and other similar sources to really know this. But there is evidence to show that even if you can't see it, your performance will increase when the game is running better. You will play better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Less micro stutter.
define running better. So just like a more smooth or more consistent frame rate, or
Yeah, the more consistent and the smoother the frame rate, the better you're gonna play, and the higher the frame rate.
I mean,
So
that
like
makes sense to me.
the same
right?
person playing at 60 frames per second versus someone playing at 120, the person playing at 120 is gonna perform better, and that continues like pretty much as far as they were able to push it. Like
Really, yeah.
Yeah,
I would think once you got high enough, like it
you would
became,
think
like,
it would cap, because there's
imperceptible,
definitely
right?
a point where you can't tell the difference consciously
Yeah.
anymore. That definitely exists, but they were not able to find a point, I don't think, where your performance stopped going up.
It also depends on the individual skill of the person. Like,
Oh yeah, it's not
someone
going to affect me
who's-
at all.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
not going to
terrible
affect
at
someone who's
video
like a casual, but
But if you're
someone
good
who's
at video
like,
games, if you actually care, I don't even think you have to be like pro level, but like if you like playing competitive games, then it's probably worth your money.
Like,
Well,
my
no, I'm not
performance-
even gonna say it would affect you. I don't know if I'm gonna say it was worth your money, because like those frame rates are like
expensive.
yeah, they're like sell your house expensive.
I mean, my
eventually.
performance in games has only gone up as I've gotten more frames.
Yeah.
So it,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
definitely
that's
helps.
that's definitely not controversial to me. Like that should be obvious, I think. Like
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, if you have 60 frames per second, somebody playing at 30 frames per second, you're just at a gigantic
Yeah,
advantage.
you
Yeah.
have
Dude.
a full frame
just
every second on him.
thinking, like I was playing Destiny 2 on PS5 the other day, 120 hertz in multiplayer or Crucible, right? Like the PvP.
Yeah.
And there's cross generational play. So PS4 people 30 FPS versus 120 FPS. It's just
that's
like
not fair.
how do
Yeah.
you compete? Yeah.
You really don't. It's
I mean, it's the same Apex Legends. I'm pretty sure. I think it runs at 60 on older consoles, but I'm playing it at
Yeah.
120, and
Yeah.
like 120 plus I'm on a keyboard and mouse versus people on controller, so I have a
It's-
definite advantage.
Apex is always fun because sometimes you find that guy on Switch.
Oh yeah, I forgot
That
that game
Switch
was
at
on
60?
Switch now.
So Switch is barely chugging at 30.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna
shit.
say
Oh, that's
at
important.
You
adaptive
can-
resolutions.
You can tell someone's on Switch because just the way they turn is blocky and chunky.
Mhm.
Really, I've
Yeah.
never noticed. That's fun.
I've noticed them because you can literally run circles around them, and
That
they
I
can't
ran into
react.
one of those the other day, and I didn't realize that was what it was. I ran into a Gibraltar just crouched, and he had his shield up, and I was like, "What are you doing, bud?"
He
And
couldn't
I ran
keep up
around him a
with
bit
you.
before I killed him.
Yeah, those are people who are either using super low sensitivity controllers or are on like Switch and can't really figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
That's the downside of cross-platform play.
I
is
mean, that's the
eventually
price you
it's gonna
gotta
be-
Yeah. I was just
I mean,
gonna say
I play
Or
Sniper in my friend group because my screen's 1440p and theirs are 1080p, and like I don't know that Apex is running at a full 1080p on an original Xbox One, and like
I would guess not.
I can just see farther than them. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. My game renders farther than theirs do. Like I just have more pixels. I can make out a
Yeah.
person way farther than they can.
Yeah, there's definite advantages in games to being wealthy, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Just like the rest of life.
Yeah. The rich get richer, except you can have all like the high tech stuff you want. If you're still bad at games, you're still gonna be bad at games. You're just gonna be
Yeah.
bad at games with a lot of money.
Yeah.
True.
Like this is all based on like at a high level where you're pretty competitive on your own. There's a difference there. But for someone who just picks up Apex and plays it on the weekends, you're not gonna notice anything.
Yeah,
And then it
getting
goes
like
full circle, and you play Rec Room with they made Rec Room games playable in 2D on a normal like keyboard and mouse setup,
Oh, okay.
and you're at a massive disadvantage against those people if you're in a headset.
Yeah.
Really?
A massive disadvantage. Yeah, because they can turn around. All they have to do is move their wrist to do a full 360,
Right.
turn,
Okay.
and you have to like move your entire body and aim your arms and everything, and like also you're actually getting shot at, and they're not. They're just looking at
Okay,
the screen.
so I didn't realize that like that level of competition was in Rec Room. I was just assuming like bowling and golfing and stuff.
Oh no, there's
But
paintball. I mean,
paintball, yeah.
paintball. Yeah, paintball is like it's still guns. Like you're still
Mhm.
shooting at each other and all. Like,
True.
and it's a multiplayer shooter. Yeah, it's just very cartoony.
Yeah, VR is wild.
Yeah,
And I feel like the future of VR is just going to get more weighty controls. Like you already see it in Pavlov with their gun controls and Blade and Sorcery with, the fact that everything has a heft to it. Because early generation VR games, nothing had weight to it, and everything felt like it was just like a toy.
Like inflatables.
Yeah, it was just like you're just hitting people with a pool noodle. I can always tell when a VR game is from a certain era because I'll swing a sword around and it'll just feel like I have a pool noodle in my hands. Like it doesn't show weight, it doesn't show any heft to it, it doesn't react, and it's really weird. It's weird to go back and play old games.
I feel like heft and weight are kind of difficult things to nail in VR too, because like if you really want to go, if you really want to make something as hefty as it should be, it might feel like unresponsive when you're actually playing too. So I feel like there's a delicate balance that needs to be struck.
Yeah, you have to kind of encourage the players to pretend that there's weight to things.
Yeah, Blade and Sorcery does a really good job because when you swing like an axe, a two-handed axe, you definitely, the game does everything in its power to make it feel like it's a two-handed axe. Like it's scaled properly. You look at it and it has heft. You hit someone with it, it has heft, and you could just knock them over, bowl them over. It's really, really unique.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like as a gamer, your first instinct a lot of the times is to like test your constraints, right? Like to try and break whatever you're doing at the time just to see if it's possible.
And I feel that's like just human. Like
true, yeah. But I feel like that instinct, that natural instinct, might kind of be an impediment for like VR progress, right? Because like,
well, I think you kind of lose that eventually. Like, I definitely did. I like the first thing I wanted to do when I put on a VR headset was like stick my head through the walls and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I start playing Half-Life Alyx, like suddenly I value that immersion, and I don't.
That's true.
I don't want to do anything to break it.
Yeah, no, like it does like temporarily rewire your brain, right? Like, cause like I have like, let's say like Job Simulator, for example, there's a very particular way you grab objects in that game. And then like, if you play that for long enough, like this happened to me, like took the headset off, real life, tried to grab something in that weird way too. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, it's just because I got like used to that motion. My brain got used to
people.
Yeah.
Another thing is like, I don't know. I mean, VR is not the only place where I will like do things to preserve my own immersion. Like when I'm playing Kerbal Space Program, you can move a person, like one of your Kerbals, from any crew container to another crew container on your ship with like just a menu. But like for my immersion, if those two things don't actually have like a pathway between them, then I will make that person do an extra vehicular walk.
See, I'm right there with you, Connor. I go out of my way for my immersion. I do crazy things for my immersion, but I don't think that we are like the majority of people.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think anyone that values immersion will do that, and I think that the audience that is into VR right now really values immersion. So
yeah, for sure.
Because I know a lot of people that like follow traffic rules in GTA until they're doing something illegal. I know people that like. I don't know. I know a lot of everybody's got their own limit, but I think a lot of people will do stuff for immersion. Like, I don't like doing things that I don't think a character would do in a game, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, there are games where that really bothers me, like Watch Dogs, where you're constantly asked to do things that it doesn't make sense for your character to do, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I'm not one to break immersion in a lot of games. I don't even do it in like strategy games. I just have this. I'm the kind of person that'll play a game of Civ against the computer and start trash talking the computer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that might be a little too far, but I appreciate your gusto.
Yeah, I get it. You just get into it. It's like I
better not fire those nukes at me, Gandhi.
Like even in a game where I know like
piece of garbage.
Like a game as immersive as Outer Wilds, like. I know that like you die a lot in that game. You're just going to like it has a lot of hazards to it.
Yeah,
but
no spoilers by the way.
I know, but like even though I know that death doesn't matter, like it's still like that game invites you to sit there and think about the fact that you're about to die sometimes, and like that still got to me even after I died like 100 times.
Yeah, like there's some games like Dwarf Fortress just gets me in a mood to cause chaos.
Yeah.
Like I'll get all comfy and then I'll find a unique way to like have everyone die so I can go on to start a new save. Emergent gameplay is super super cool,
Mm-hmm.
and especially games that just plop you down into this massive sandbox and say, figure it out.
Yeah, I think some games do that really well. Others do not. But from everything I've seen, Dwarfs Fortress is definitely
Yeah.
in the former.
I've
Yeah, a
always
lot of
struggled with that
AAA
in
games.
Minecraft. That was one of the major reasons I've been enjoying Dragon Quest Builders over Minecraft recently, is because in Minecraft you really have to pretend that your buildings have a purpose,
Yeah.
and that's always kind of
Do you,
like
though?
beyond a room to sleep in. You really don't need anything in that game.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Like, and so like there's no reason like I have trouble just sitting down and building a purposeless building just because it looks cool. Like I want to build something that looks cool, but I want it to also do something.
Yeah, I feel like Valheim kind of fixed that Minecraft dynamic of just building something, because
Yeah, Valheim did a good job. Like
Minecraft
and Valheim
takes forever to build something.
Valheim also really encouraged cool buildings because it like
Yeah.
you had to like put somewhere for smoke to go. Like yeah, it encouraged a lot of thought into the building. And I think Subnautica does a good job with that too, and so does to some extent No Man's Sky, although it has some conflicting systems.
Like I like building mechanics where you have to put a lot of work into it, but the work is well rewarded. Like Minecraft, to build a house, you don't need to do a lot. You just need to get some cobblestone.
See,
Yeah,
it's
with that
really
dirt.
fascinating to me thinking about this because like these games all ask for different levels of like imagination commitment from the player, right? Like, because like when I play Minecraft with friends, more often than not, like we don't even plan it, but we end up like role playing, just playing that game. Just
Yeah,
because,
you
like,
have to.
like you said, right? Like a lot of the buildings don't, 99% of buildings don't serve a purpose, but like
Yeah,
we
but
make
like
them serve a purpose in our heads, right? Like
all you have to do
whereas
is
like a
build.
lot of other
So, like,
games, like
you're
they
gonna
really will
build
have
a
a
dining
purpose.
hall, like
Yeah.
even though nobody's gonna eat in it, like yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and
Like-
I think it really takes a good game to pull that off, right? Like to ask like the player, like, "Hey, you're gonna make this fun with your imagination, and we're not gonna do it for you. We're just gonna
Yeah,
give you the tools to do it."
I have a hard time giving Minecraft props on that one because I do find myself at some point like getting bored with it because I don't feel like anything I'm doing has meaning.
Yeah, I
Really?
feel like
Yeah.
Valheim was helped for, at least for me, because me and my friend were both into like the era. And so we set out to build a meat hall. And we built a meat hall and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and that was cool. And like Dragon Quest Builders, like I sat down and I was like the game asked me to build a restaurant, and I was like, okay, and I like did it pretty, I did, like just having that tiny prompt was enough for
Yeah.
me to like.
I think for me, I just want to say I think I will disagree here because I really do like the fact that like each time I play Minecraft with my friends, it's completely different. And like it ends up going for weeks, sometimes even months on end. But like each time I play, it's completely different. And it's not because the game changes, it's because like what we're doing in the game changes.
Yeah, but I think that says more about you and your friends than it does about the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think I agree with that. But I
Usually-
will say that I think it's cool that Minecraft encourages that.
yeah.
Usually when I end up playing Minecraft with friends, I'll be behind on progression because I'm a lot slower paced and I don't like to progress fast.
See, I'm the opposite.
I'll
I'm
find-
always way ahead.
I'll find like some side project to do. Like I did it in Valheim.
Oh yeah, I love being like a caveman in
But-
Minecraft, dude. Like I almost
No,
never
don't be-
advance that much.
My favorite thing to do, like I had full netherite, and the last time we played Minecraft, I had full netherite with some despair before any of my friends had even like made their first diamond chest plate. Like
Yeah, there'll be like people who have already defeated the Ender Dragon, and I've literally just got my first diamonds.
yeah,
Like,
and the reason for that is that I just
why?
love mining in that game. Like I just think it's super zen to zone out, put some music on, and just dig for like forever.
Yeah.
I like most of my friends will like optimize the crap out of the game, out of Minecraft, though. At least in my experience.
Yeah,
So
I
they'll
got
just-
real bad about that towards the end once I had the full beacon set up plus efficiency 4 netherite pickaxe, and like you literally just evaporate everything that you mine. Like it's gone the second you like not the second, like the nanosecond you click something, it's gone. And you're literally destroying stuff as fast, if not faster, than creative mode.
Yeah.
And you can just hollow out an area and get like hundreds of diamonds in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, there'll be there's always those people who will optimize everything and have a farm for everything, and everything will be set up and automated, so I don't have to do it.
That was
But
me.
that's for me. That's a lot of the fun in games like that. At
See,
least
the
in
fun part
Minecraft.
for me is automating it, and it upsets me that once you've automated it, there's nothing left to do.
Yeah, that's why I don't do
That's
it.
why I like Factorio so much.
Yeah, because there's more things. The
There's
Dyson
always
Sphere is
more
the
things to
same thing.
automate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like,
I want to play Minecraft the same way I play Factorio, and you just can't because you
Yeah,
run
you
out of
can't
stuff
do
to
that.
yeah,
rapidly.
eventually you're just gonna be out of things unless you install a massive mod pack. And
That's-
that comes
yeah.
with all the downsides of having a mod pack, especially in single player.
That's why like people on like Hermitcraft, one of the bigger YouTube series for Minecraft, like they do a ton of role playing. Like, you know, a lot of the big machines and stuff they build, they don't actually do anything. Everybody just pretends that they do something.
Yeah.
And like that's fine, but me and my friends just don't do that. I don't know why. Like for one thing, there were only 3 of us playing, and like it would have been really dumb and lame, I think. Like there just weren't enough of us in on the
Yeah,
joke.
3. Yeah, I feel like 3 is not enough for like an imagination-centered game. Right?
Yeah, I think if there had been 5 of us, like Ryan joined in, and then we were able to have, we got towards where we could have done a bit of it. I don't know. Next time, I think we're gonna try to get between 5 and 10 for our next playthrough. Because my next time I play
Yeah.
through Minecraft is gonna be when the Caves and Cliffs, or I think just the Caves, because they split that update in half.
Yeah, I'm about to pull the trigger on a modded server
Yeah, I
just
wouldn't
to
blame
have
you.
one
Yeah,
and just play through it with friends because it sounds like a cool time to just have someone be a vampire. It'd be great because I'd go the other route and start murdering their kind.
What mod pack are you looking at?
Eternal, I think.
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, it has
Anyway, I
a bunch
think we
of magic
kinda-
and tech mods.
We've gone way off the rails at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
do we,
kind of
uh,
rambled for 40 minutes.
Oh,
think we oughta
that's
Tie
fun,
it up
though.
with games
That's,
we've been playing.
That's the beauty of this show, or something. Yeah. What have you been playing, Connor?
I played. I guess I'll talk about Castlevania. Maybe I played that last night.
The
That's like the
original?
only. Yeah, it's the only game I played this week. I love that game to death, dude. It's so good. I don't know. I don't think it's as hard as a lot of people say it is. I think some of the systems are a little difficult to understand if you don't read the manual, which people don't. But
The manual. God, remember those days
yeah, I know.
where each game
No,
came
I
with
mean-
a manual?
I mean,
Oh,
try
like a
sit
book.
down and try to play the original Legend of Zelda without the manual or a guide. Like, people say you need a guide to play that game, but like the manual was a guide for the first 2 or 3 dungeons. Like, they just shipped that with the game. It was kind of crazy. Like, it told
Yeah.
you step by step how to get to the first dungeon.
That's wild. No,
And
I was
marked
just thinking of
the-
like little booklets that used to be included.
Yeah,
The
and it marked
games.
like the second and third one on the map. Like, and it shipped with a map because in game there was no map to look at. Like,
That's so hard. That's so
I love the
hardcore.
NES.
I love it.
dude. I
Yeah.
love those games. But yeah, Castlevania, like a lot of people don't know that the sub weapons get upgrades if you use them to kill a lot of enemies. So like if I have like the throwing boomerang cross thing, if I kill a bunch of enemies with it, I'll pick up a little Roman numeral tablet thing with a 2 on it, and now I can throw 2 crosses at once. And then if I keep doing it, I can throw 3 of them at once. And like if you have the triple crosses, like one of the hardest bosses in the game, Death, if you have the triple cross, you can kill him before he attacks you. I'm pretty sure. Like you can kill him so fast with 3 crosses plus the whip. And like I don't know, but it is a game about momentum. Like if you have the triple crosses and then you die against a boss, then you're gonna respawn at a checkpoint halfway through the level. You're not gonna have the crosses anymore, and you don't have time to get them back before you fight the boss again. So I kind of don't like that. You kind of fall into a death spiral, and I typically like I'll play the game, and I've gotten like as far as Dracula without game overing or anything. But if I get a game over, I typically turn the game off because I won't be having a good time anymore.
Mm.
I have never
So
beat
you-
Dracula though.
I was gonna say, like you mentioned last week, you'd never beaten it. Has that changed?
No. I was just bored last night and didn't have time to play a newer game because that's the other beauty about Castlevania is like the whole game's like an hour long. Like it's not a very
Yeah.
long game. So if you don't have a lot of time, NES games are pretty
So-
good to play.
Who owns Castlevania? Konami, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't expect any more.
Dude,
Yeah,
if we
no,
could
there's
get,
not much
there's
that.
been a rumor going around that like Sony wants to get a lot of Konami's IP. Like if Sony could get Castlevania and Metal Gear maybe, that would be ideal, I
God, I
think.
don't want Sony to own Castlevania, but
I want
What-
Sony to
why
own
not?
Silent Hill.
I don't want Castlevania to be exclusive, I don't think.
Oh, right. I wasn't even thinking of the exclusive aspect. I was just thinking
I mean, yeah, I would love somebody
Give it-
that's actually
give a
going to
first
use
party-
Castlevania to
yeah.
own Castlevania, but like, I don't know. I don't. Also, Sony doesn't make a lot of 2D games. I guess
That's
that
true.
doesn't really matter because it's just owning an IP. They can give it to whoever. But Sony likes to push the envelope technologically, and that's not what Castlevania needs right now. Castlevania needs a good 2.5D adventure or a good retro,
that's
like
fair.
high pixel, whatever they're called. Like I forget what people like to call the like HD pixel art games, but like a Castlevania game in the style of like Owlboy or Shovel Knight or
Yeah, that would be crazy.
or even like Hollow Knight, like that'd be a day one
The
purchase.
original
for me.
creator of Castlevania, he did Bloodstained, right? A Kickstarter
Yes,
for
and those games
Bloodstained.
are. Well, I hate Ritual of the Night. I think that game's really boring and stupid. But I love Curse of the Moon and Curse of the Moon 2. Those
Yeah,
games.
I was gonna say Ritual of the Night didn't really pan out that well, right? Like I don't think
Ritual
it was.
of the Night is a Metroidvania, which is like I don't like the Castlevania Metroidvanias very much. I just don't. I've played Symphony of the Night. I never finished it. I thought it was good, but I didn't finish it. I just don't really care for them. as much
Symphony
as
of the Night, I hear, is like the best one.
Yeah, and I think Ritual of the Night is not a bad game. Like people really liked it, but it's just not for me.
Mm.
But Curse of the Moon is just it's just more classic
Yeah.
Castlevania, which is what the world really. I mean, clearly that's what people wanted because that's what they kept making. Ritual of the Night didn't perform as well as they'd hoped, so they made a sequel to Curse of the Moon, which
Oh,
is
did
like
they? I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
and Curse of the Moon, like the beauty of those games is that they're kind of cheap to make, like where they're so low resolution and stuff. So the original Curse of the Moon was like a freaking Kickstarter. It was a bonus.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a bonus.
And then people loved it, and I don't blame them. It's so tight, it's so good, and it's like super replayable because like you can either there's like several ways to play it. You can you run into other characters along the way, and you can recruit them, which gives you an additional playable character with like a full extra HP bar, and that's super cool. You can kill them, which makes your main character stronger. Like you get a power for it, but I don't think you get more HP. But your core character gets stronger. Or you can just leave them and you never get any upgrades at all.
Hmm.
And I think that introduces so much replayability. And I like that because these games are pretty short. Like, I would not have. I think if Castlevania was any longer than it is, I would not have played it nearly as much as I have. But it's kind of nice to be able to sit down and in like an hour play a game start to finish.
Yeah.
I like that. And like, the original Castlevania does not have. You don't make any decisions in that game. Not really. Like, you decide which sub weapon you want, but
You
like
just,
there are no. The
get
original
good at it.
Castlevania at least doesn't have any split paths or anything. They introduced that in Castlevania 2 or Castlevania 3. Castlevania 2 is kind of open world, and I don't like it very much.
Kind of a weird trend, right? Like with like Castlevania 2 was being the black sheep and Zelda 2 was the black sheep. I feel like a lot of these game developers back in the day with their second game, they really tried to take a risk and not just capitalize off the success of the first, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I dunk on Castlevania 2 a lot among my friends because I don't. The problem with Castlevania 2 is that it's really slow for no reason, and it also like has a lot of really stupid design decisions to try to force you to buy a guide. Like
That's lame.
it's unwinnable without because of the poor translation and like the need to have a guide. The puzzles are just unsolvable. Like it doesn't give you enough hints to be able to figure them out. I think if not for that, it would have been a pretty good game. It's my stepbrother's favorite Castlevania game. I'm pretty sure he played it with a guide, and it's like way easier than the others. Like
With the
just in
guy.
general. And it's not a bad game, and it like Castlevania 2 walked so that Symphony of the Night could run.
Mm-hmm.
It arguably you could put it in the same camp as the original Metroid, but it's not quite as good in the Metroidvania category.
Right.
But Castlevania 1, super good game. Pretty easy to get your hands on, I think. I think it's on Switch in the
Switch,
Castlevania collection.
NES.
It's not on the Nintendo
Right.
Switch Online
Oh,
thing.
really? Okay.
I don't think so. Because, yeah, it's Konami owned, so they're going
Right.
to drain every penny they
Konami,
can.
please just make good games again, please.
They wouldn't dare.
They're not profitable.
Konami's
Make good
sitting
games.
on
Make any
Konami's
games.
make games. Konami's
Yeah.
sitting on Metal Gear. They're sitting on Castlevania. They're sitting on Silent Hill. Like
Castlevania's been in a bad spot for a long time, too, because, like, they didn't make any Classicvania games after Symphony of the Night. They just stopped doing it. And they kept trying to put the series in 3D, and that has never worked. I don't think there's really a good reason that didn't work. I think they just kind
dude,
of...
I think a 3D Castlevania, maybe done by FromSoft, would be insane.
I think it could be. I think it definitely could be, but
Yeah.
I don't want that necessarily. Like, I have no desire to play that. I would play it if it came out, but
I mean,
not
it
what
would
I'm
be a
looking for.
completely different,
Totally
basically,
different
game.
experience.
Yeah.
Because what I look for in a Castlevania game is an extremely tight, very cool 2D platformer with a focus
Yeah.
on combat. And they've delivered that time, like, even so I say they never made another Classicvania, but that's not really true, because they did a really cool remake of Castlevania 1 that went under the radar on the Wii. And it does make me point out, please stop remaking Castlevania 1. Please, for the love of God, nobody wants that anymore. Like, they remade Castlevania 4, or Super Castlevania 4 is a remake of Castlevania 1. And in my opinion,
Very
it's
confusing.
I don't like it as much. It's different enough, I guess, that calling it a remake is maybe weird, but it's a retelling. But Castlevania 1, you super have to, like, think about your sub-weapons and stuff that you use, because the bosses all have, like, one that is particularly good against them. Not from a damage perspective, but from a strategy perspective. And in Super Castlevania 4, there's no reason to ever use a sub-weapon, because the whip is just ridiculously good. So there's no reason, you can just ignore them the entire game, and I don't like that very much.
Hmm.
Still a good game, though. I'm done.
Okay. I can go next, I guess. So I've been playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and I'm just such a happy boy right now. Like, I love these games so much. It has been, I think the last time I played Mass Effect was when Mass Effect 3 came out. Like, I never touched it after that. And I think, when did 3 come out, Mike? Was that like 2012, 2011?
Yeah, I was somewhere
That
in there.
sounds right.
So it's been like about 10 years since
I know I
played
was at
Mass
an
Effect.
edgy point in my life where I was dunking on Mass Effect fans for how terrible the game was and how happy I was to not be a Mass Effect fan.
Well, that being said, I love these games so much.
Oh, yeah, no,
I-
it was just the ending that was bad. I have heard
Oh, yeah,
nothing but good things about Mass Effect by and large. Like, people were just so upset about that ending.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, some of it was justified. I also think it was a little too extreme, the backlash, but maybe I'll get to that when I finally get around to playing Mass Effect 3. So, in the Legendary Edition, you get all 3 games. On next-gen consoles, it runs at 60 FPS 4K, which is really nice. And, of course, it was not just a simple, like, up-res frame rate boost. They did a lot of reworking. The biggest facelift came to Mass Effect 1, actually, right? So, like, Mass Effect 1 back in the day was a very janky game, like, very, like, beloved, but it was very... But it would not fly by today's standards, for sure. So they reworked the gunplay, improved a lot of, like, the assets in the game, and, like, improved how the Mako, which is like the tank planetary rover thing, controls. Just made it more modern, like more in line with 2 and 3. And I am 20 hours plus into Mass Effect 1 right now. And it is like seeing an old friend again after so long. Like, I forgot how much I loved these characters and this world, especially. Like, Mass Effect is one of those few games where I could just, like, open my menu and open up the codex and just read it for hours and be completely entertained. Like,
Yeah.
I love the world so much. And, like, it's a testament to how good the characters are, where, like, yeah, like, the main story with the Reapers is interesting, but, like, my favorite thing, the thing I look forward to most when I play Mass Effect, is that after I finish a main mission, I go into my ship and I go and talk to everyone and see if there's any new dialogue. Because, like, I just want to get to know these characters better because they're so well written and so interesting. So that's the strength of Mass Effect for me. Not like, right, like, I get, like, if you were super invested in the main story, like how the conclusion of 3 would be a letdown. But like to me, Mass Effect was always about just living in this world with these characters. And like it's been like 10 or so years, so I've forgotten most of like the small character beats. Of course, I remember like the big story moments, but the character stuff that was really the most compelling part of the game, like I've almost completely forgotten. So getting to experience like Garrus's history and Tali and Rex and Liara and the two human characters who are far less interesting than the alien characters, but just getting to experience these characters' histories and backgrounds and like how all that ties into the world has been such a treat for me. And I must say, like they did a really good job of like bringing Mass Effect 1 up to par for like modern gaming, right? Like because and granted, there's still some jank there. You can detect the jank of Mass Effect 1 certainly in this collection still, but it's definitely not like almost unplayable like it was back in the day, I think. Like back in the day, Mass Effect 1 was definitely kind of a struggle to get through, I think. Because like I actually started with Mass Effect 2, then went back to 1, and then like when 3 came out, I was playing that. But yeah, like I'm having a blast playing 1, having way more fun playing Mass Effect 1 than I remember having back in the day. So I'm excited to continue on my journey, and I expect this is pretty much all I'm going to be playing until I get through all 3 games. So having a great time. I know, Mike, you're really into Mass Effect as well. Have you had a chance to check out the collection yet?
I checked. I think most of my interaction with the series was from the speedrun standpoint, and I can say
Right.
that 3 speedrun's the only one that's still viable. They fixed every other speedrun bug in the other 2 games,
Okay.
but
That's
3 is
interesting.
still relatively viable.
I wonder if they touched up 3 the least because, it was the most modern one. They definitely did the most work in 1. I know that, but I wonder
They
how much they
fixed
did for 2 and 3.
just about every single skip that was possible in 2. They fixed.
Wow.
3, I guess they didn't touch because the devs couldn't see a speed run for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. But other than that, I just like how they're all together now. I have
Yeah.
all the DLC, you don't have to pay like
Yeah, that's
hundreds of
the
dollars
great
for it
part
all.
too. Like Mass
Yeah,
Effect was
isn't this
notorious.
actually like cheaper than buying?
Oh, for
Yes.
sure. Yeah, like because like Mass Effect was notorious for having like dozens of DLC and like some minor, some big, but like this has everything except for the multiplayer in 3, which I don't really care about.
You're
I
also
wonder if that
missing
had that.
one DLC.
Yes, there's one DLC missing, and there was
Oh,
some
no,
like
that's fine.
technical reason they couldn't bring it over, but it wasn't a big DLC if I remember right.
So what happened to the code was that when they were porting Pinnacle Station from Xbox 360, or I think it was Xbox 360 to PS3, the source code got corrupted. So when they went to remaster the series and remaster 1, all of Pinnacle Station's source code was gone and unusable, and they didn't have the
Hilarious that
time
they
to ground up
presumably
rebuild the DLC.
only had one copy of that code and couldn't like was there no source control? Could they not like revert? I don't know how
They probably
wrote this
did,
code,
but I don't know how it happened. But it just got lost in the sauce, I guess.
lost. I mean, it happens.
It's gone.
It happens surprisingly
Sometimes you
often
just- yeah,
in games.
sometimes you just lose it. It was good thing it wasn't the good DLC. It was
Yeah,
garbage like hacked on arena mode.
exactly. Yeah, that's the
So-
only incomplete portion of this, and that was probably the worst DLC across all 3 games, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very happy with this collection, dude. It's crazy to me. Like, it took EA like literal years to listen to the fans and put this thing together. Like, we've been asking for this for so long, and EA like repeatedly has said they have no interest in this thing, and then they see how much like remasters and remakes make when other people started doing them, and they finally got their stuff together and made this thing, and I'm so happy.
This is also EA trying to save face after the disaster that was Andromeda.
Oh yeah,
Like
No,
I'm
and-
seeing
and-
a lot of people
and they're already
going
confirmed that
back
there's
and
like a new Mass Effect in development, and I can only hope that I think the reception to this collection is pretty strong. Just like anecdotally, like I saw like so many of my friends on my friends list playing this thing, and I was kind of surprised, right? Because this is just like a re-release of like 3 old games, but like the love for Mass Effect, especially the original trilogy, is strong, and hopefully they see that, and hopefully Mass Effect, the next one, is more like the first three rather than Andromeda.
Yeah, there's already article upon article comparing, just kind of blasting Andromeda, because now that you can play through all three games in a good format, it shows like the difference in heart and writing that went into the original trilogy compared to Andromeda.
Yeah.
Like Andromeda just suffered. Everything, the writing suffered, the art suffered, everything suffered. Well, yeah, I don't know why.
The players
but
suffered.
Only BioWare.
Yeah.
knows why. Yeah, everyone suffered.
Everyone and everything suffered. Yeah.
Objectively was a bad Mass Effect game.
Yeah.
And
And
you
so
go back to the
disappointing.
original trilogy and everything
just
just
hope-
makes sense.
Man, I really just hope BioWare gets their mojo back. Like the whole move with Anthem was not it. They should never have made Anthem. Like they should have stuck to their guns, what they're good at. They're good at really good world building and character driven RPGs. They're really good at that. And they need to keep doing that, please, because like there's nothing quite like a good BioWare RPG to this day, I would argue. So
It really started going downhill, I believe, after Dragon Age 2. Like that was
Yeah,
the start
I
of
think
like
so.
the downhill slope.
Dragon Age 2 was like the first stinker. I quite liked Inquisition. Dragon Age Origins was a classic to me. Like I
Dragon Age
love that
Origins.
game to death. Yeah.
Great.
But
But
yeah, I hope and pray for BioWare to get over this funk they've been in for the last several years. It feels
I
like
think Inquisition also suffered from some of the same faults as, I don't think as Andromeda, but it was close to it. Where
yeah, Inquisition was enjoyable. It wasn't a masterpiece, but it was enjoyable. But
like I think Andromeda suffered from just the fact the world wasn't fleshed out. You threw us in a new galaxy and didn't flesh a lot of things out. You had the same old alien races plus 2.
yeah, that
Like,
doesn't
it
really make a whole
wasn't-
lot of sense, does it?
Yeah, it was. You could have just thrown it in the Milky Way and thrown a new race of aliens at us.
Yeah, I mean, like the Milky Way's a pretty big place, you know. Like
Yeah.
it totally could have just been set there if you're not going to, you know,
Or you
like
could have
if
set a
it's in
prequel or
Andromeda,
something.
there should be all new races, right? Like it doesn't really make sense to reuse the existing.
The
sort of-
existing races, and then throw a race, and then spoiler, a race that's made from the other race.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not. Yeah, Andromeda.
It's-
I'm just gonna pretend Andromeda doesn't exist because like I've never
Yeah.
played it and I don't think I'll ever play it.
I
So
I played like I think the prologue, and it just didn't. It felt good to move in, but that's about it. I don't think I'll ever give it a full playthrough.
but yeah,
Too many
I
bad feelings about it.
don't want to belabor the point. Mass Effect. Been playing the collection and it's fantastic and I love it and that's what I've been playing. So what about you, Mike?
Well, Hardspace Shipbreaker completely wiped the progress, so it's a brand new game, so I can talk about it now.
What happened?
And
Did your
God, it
save
got bad.
or something?
No, they introduced their story, so they wiped everyone's progress.
I'd be kind
Back
of mad
to
if
the beginning.
that happened.
And they messed with the progression system, so now it feels super slow. Like I put maybe like 5 or 6 hours in now, and where I used to do that, I get to the good stuff and start like making progress and have a lot of upgrades. I've purchased in that 5 or 6 hours a grand total of 2 upgrades because they've slowed down progression so hard to try to like gradually ease people in there that it's just a slog.
That's lame. I hate
Yeah.
it when
hate what
developers
they've
update
done.
their games and they get worse. Like that's the most frustrating thing.
Like sure, it throws like it threw a new model of ship in the mix, but it's the same ships I've been breaking down, and they prevent me from doing a lot of the things that made scrapping them easier, like more tethers. So it suffered. Like I was definitely having a lot less fun progressing through the first 7 ranks the second time than I did the first time, because
Yeah.
it just became a slog, and
That's
they changed the
unfortunate.
way you like had the scraps. You just had to be meticulous. I don't know. I just feel bad. I hope that the story is good, but I hope the story can carry me, because I'm not playing it until they update the story more, because I've completed all the first act. So I
Yeah,
hope
I
it
mean,
gets better.
Are there other people also? do they also have the same complaints? Because hopefully
Yeah,
if they do.
a lot of people have the same complaints about the progression feeling super slow, and well, you progress through the ranks kind of quick, but you don't get a lot of upgrade points, and so it doesn't feel as good. It's like, sure, you unlock a new upgrade with a new rank, but you can't afford it because you don't have enough tech points.
Mhm.
So by the time you get enough tech points, there's now 3 more upgrades available for you to purchase with tech points. So it just kind of throws you down like a rabbit hole. And God, some of those upgrades are necessary, and if you don't have them, it just becomes a pain. And I hate having to choose that hard for a game that's supposed to be chill.
Yeah. Well, that's lame. Hopefully they patch it and make it more
Yeah.
tolerable.
It's still early access, but I definitely have. It's changed my opinion of the game from what it was previously.
Okay, I think that will do it for us this week. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter. Please like, rate, and review us on any podcast service you use, and click the link in the description of this podcast to join our Discord and talk to us there. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yep. See you guys next week.
See you next week.
See you next week.